Peace, family. It's your boy Fonzie Neutron,
Mm.
aka Alfonso Fresh Great. So without much further ado, I'm gonna bring in the brother Phoenix, the Icefire. What's good with you, sir?
Yeah, what's going on, man? Thank you for having me, man.
No, I appreciate you definitely taking the time.
Mm.
Obviously some music stuff to discuss what's going on around some of the nature of the things happening within the industry.
Mhm.
But why don't you give our listeners and viewers a brief introduction of yourself?
Yes, yeah, I go by the name of Phoenix the Icefire. Could you turn it down a little? I go by the name of Phoenix the Icefire. Um, I dropped my first project in 2009, Baptism Under Fire, scratched by DJ Roast, hosted by Melanin 9. Previous before that, 2008. Um, I was part of a record label in terms of the management side, owning the record label Higher Heights, which put out Triple Darkness for all those who know about Triple Darkness. Um, the album was called Anathema. Um, Cyrus Malachi, Crown Nectar on the Sharon at the time, Melanin 9. So yeah, it was Jemai, Jemai. Sorry, what's it? Jemai, go upstairs, please. Yeah. So yeah, we put out, just a bit of history about me since then. I've dropped albums such as The Quantum Leap, which featured Keith Murray, Kalashnikov, Kaiser, Smirnoff, Scribbler, Rusty Jokes from Boot Camp Click, fully produced by Chemo. Um, done shows with people like uh, Big Daddy Kane, Dead Prez, Drew the Damager, um, Onyx, Immortal Technique, Busta Rhymes, um, Wu Tang, Ghostface Killer, Killer Priest. Um, yeah, and the list goes on. List goes on. Shout out to Big Daddy Kane though, because he was one of the first kind of major artists to give me props, for my performance with my brother Black Chronicle. Um, dropped albums such as Cinematic on Revolve Records, Panacea, dropped Panacea. Um, I got nominated for Best Album of the Year um, with a producer named Husky Brown, absolutely phenomenal producer. Um, yeah, just gone strength to strength, man. Shout out to Global Faction. They've done a lot of my music videos and yeah, collaborated with my company, Sovereign Comics. Shout out to Dr. Cyclops from Sovereign Comics, who co-produced the music video Humans Are Coming on the Panacea album with Global Faction.
Okay, don't yeah. Shouts out to Global Faction. They definitely been putting in work for a long time with a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
music videos and filming and things of that nature. But I mean, you just mentioned it.
Shout out to Core Mega as well. Shout out to I cannot forget.
Oh,
Shout out
definitely
to Core
peace to
Mega.
them, man. And you mentioned being involved in music from like the early millennium and stuff like that. You know,
Before then.
no doubt, but dropping stuff from around that point. But obviously, that's what I was kind of gonna get to doing your thing before then.
Yeah,
What
Midas
was
Touch. I'm in a crew called Midas Touch as well. Shout out to AKS, Jada Exodus. Yeah.
Okay. So who was some of your early influences that got you into putting together raps?
Well, I started off as a grime MC from when I was 15. Started off
Okay.
as a grime MC when I was 15. Used to be in a crew with P Money, P Money, um, Funky D or Firma D, as his name was before. Little D, Blacks. Um, yeah, so I used to be in a group with them, a grime crew with them, but then got to the point where I was learning too much. I was reading too much, and I wanted to put that in my music. And I formed a crew with Axe and Jada X, and we became Midas Touch.
Okay. Well, it's interesting you say that because, I was, I guess, trying to gear in on who some of your early influences were. But from you saying that, you
Oh,
sort of started off from doing the grime music and then kind of getting into rap, it does kind of go into where we're going with this conversation because there was definitely a clear demarcation between those types of genres. And, I guess you kind of put it perfectly in the sense where you said you had more to say, you had more that you wanted to encapsulate musically. Would it be safe to say that, the old style of maybe the grime music was not necessarily one-dimensional, but sort of limited in a way with what you could actually display, and even those beats and on the whole
yeah.
sort of spectrum, as opposed to with rap and hip hop, it being a lot more advanced in a different way? Because I always found that myself.
Yeah, it's the truth. Like people like Gets, they were able to kind of break the boundaries of what the of what the speed of grime was, you know. They were able to do different things with their patterns. People like Kano was able to do different things with his patterns and stuff. And people like Wiley was able to you know, just be consistent, just consistent across the board, like, like machines. But for me, I was still listening to hip hop, still listening to people like Nas, Mm. people like Cannabis, people like Common, you know, um, yeah, people like Wu-Tang. I was still listening to all of that. So it was like, you know what, yeah, I want to be able to put my knowledge and my wisdom into music, and hip hop is just gave a bit more freedom, do you know what I mean, to be able to do that.
No, definitely. I mean, even just bringing it forward, I guess, one of the things we've been looking at recently is some of the UK artists who some feel are, on their own sort of mission to, get more buzz for their name internationally. Some see it as clout chasing in some extent. You've got this guy, I believe his name Big Zoo, is some like a
Oh,
comedian or something. He's dropped a
get it.
track to Eminem. You've got Skepta, who I believe was the inceptor of a lot of this conversation that's been happening over the past few months with this whole UK artists versus US artists. And in one aspect, they're saying UK rappers versus US rappers. Now, me personally, when I heard a lot of this from the initial outset, I was like, if I'm honest, I didn't find these guys as any kind of representative of UK rap or hip hop because, like you said,
Yeah.
like we were talking about grime and stuff, for those who are out here in the UK that will kind of know the differences in the genres and the scenes, it was always a separate thing. It wasn't like something that was a part of hip hop, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
truth.
guys spit and use the mic and stuff, but it's like football and American football or rugby, they're all games that use the ball, but they're all different games, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I
it's the
like that
truth.
with the spitting aspect to the music, but slowly we've seen over the probably the past 10 years or so, I'd say some of the UK scene kind of terraform in the aspect of it kind of taking more place within a more, rap orientated sound. And some feel that's because, the artists have more gone out to the street side of things. I was talking to somebody the other day from Birmingham, they're from an old group called Morris Delta 7, and he was
I know
saying that
Morris Shaw, yeah.
when he was doing his thing back in the days, he said
Shout
most
out
of
to
the
me.
guys in London weren't
Yeah.
doing that style of rap or hip hop. They wasn't even, touching those kind of street topics and stuff. It was primarily stuff what was being produced in the Midlands and other areas and stuff like that. So we've seen a lot of the music kind of change in that now. But my thing is there's original for whatever, for lack of a better term, hip hop artists here, original as they can be. They're not the originators like the FBAs or whatever in terms of, creating the whole genre and stuff, but they're original in terms of they've been putting it down from a certain period of time and they've been producing music to the same style, feel, as you said, just encapsulating everything, putting their knowledge, wisdom, understanding, racking the beats, the whole shebang. So I think that shouldn't really be confused with some of these grime artists who have, maybe found a little one or two flows or patterns now that enable them to be able to jump on, more rap style beats and things like that. But do you think it's like a clout chasing thing, or do you think they try to rewrite history?
Well, really, like I think in recent years, like in the 90s, it was, it was about it was about the music. It was about the creativity, People wanted to actually hold the physicals, they would appreciate the lyrics, the creativity, the artwork, everything. It was more appreciated. It was something that, you could wait 5 years for an album or a project, whatever. When it came, you sat with it. You sat with it and you repeated it and you understood it, you absorbed it, you took it in. It was more like like home cooked food, but now it's
Mm.
like fast food takeaway. They just want it quick. They want it. They don't even want to hold it. It's less feeling and it's more about, record labels are more about how much followers have you got? How much followers have you got? Are you viral? Are you trending right now? And, you know, all kinds of people right now, like to be trending, you don't even have to be talented, and that's what's killing the actual music itself. And so, artists are trying all kinds of different things to stay relevant, to stay in that spot where they can be entertainers, they can still live off their creativity. So, in regards to this UK US thing that's been instigated, I don't really blame artists for trying to do that, because to be honest, it's the machine behind it that's actually made people have to do these kind of things in order to get attention, in order to stay relevant, because it's not about the creativity anymore. It's about what's buzzing, what's happening. And this is something that's been brewing for a long time. So, this whole UK US thing, it's never really been done. It's never really been done. Um, so people are just, I feel like, just clutching at straws at the moment. It's just like, right, cool. What do we do? We need to do something to bring attention to the artistry, what we're doing. And yes, UK versus US, kind of reminiscent of the whole versus battles that were happening. Um, by the way, me and shout out to G Bag. Me and G Bag was doing that um, from the lockdown times. We was like the first ones doing that. To be honest, we came out with something called Clash on the Floor. Um, yeah, we was doing that before the versus stuff was popping. We was doing that.
Okay. I
So
mean,
this whole thing, huh?
oh yeah, I was just gonna touch on because you made a point when you were saying about the sort of the differentiation between like soul food and fast food, and it kind of sparked a thought process with myself because I would similarly I guess liken. I know you was talking about the style of music. Now, even to me, that was always my thing with grime music. It was like that sort of, if you put it that way, sort of like fast food. It was very repetitive. You had a few people that to me really sort of stood out in terms of being uniquely different. Like, Dizzy Rascal had his own sound and his own style.
Yeah,
There's a few others here and there, but for the most part, it was something that even just seeing it from a local level. I saw it as like anybody could kind of do it. And for the most part, anybody did, especially when it came in from like garage and then, you kind of had the grime stuff. But you had these patterns, you had these sounds, you had these styles, and you had the sound that for the most part, other people were replicated. One of the things about hip hop that really made it stand out and still makes it stand out today in its true form is the differentiation. Like I saw a post the other day where somebody was saying they just feel originality is missing a lot from music nowadays. Whereas you go back and like
exactly.
you look at hip hop artists, you look at Wu-Tang, there was a
It's
whole
true.
gang of them and not one of them sound the same. You had an artist
True.
from wherever, nobody had the same pattern, nobody had the same. You could pick 10 of these, even like now you got this whole new UK rap drill, whatever. Most of these guys all sound the same. You get enough of these youngsters all coming up now, they all sound the same. There's no I guess nothing that compels them to want to be unique or different because they've kind of built this
Yeah.
game on. oh, can you match the same formula? Can you say the same shit? Because if people
Yeah,
don't like it, and it's that fast food sort of people just want to consume what they know or what they feel. It's like a tick box thing, and then within that, you have like a popularity sort of contest where you said, people go for what they feel is more popular,
cool.
not necessarily for like the skill factor.
Yeah.
So one of the things would be, we saw Ari Spears a couple of years ago. He spoke out in controversial forums, said he didn't really like UK, and
Yeah.
I get where he was coming from, but I don't
Yeah,
think
for
he
what he's
was
saying.
necessarily hearing. I think the issue is people aren't necessarily hearing guys like yourself. They may be, some are on the underground, some are when they're going to shows, and obviously, you've opened a lot of shows for like American artists and stuff as well. But on like a commercial scale they've got people that are introducing some of these other artists who aren't necessarily, that skilled or of that ilk, but they're presenting them to say these are our, rap contemporaries. And to me, it happened years ago with Dizzy Rascal when Semtex was like the head of Def Jam UK. I think he was doing A&R, and he was really lobbying for, Dizzy Rascal to push some stuff in America. He did some stuff with UGK, and it was very, it was mediocre. But this is, all respect to him, he got his own style and he delivered it his own way. But he didn't bring nothing then that would have had that wider appeal to, I guess, whether you say the Americans, whether somebody like Ari Spears, who's a, a hardcore American hip
A
hop listener,
purist.
that yeah, that would figure out, what's this is something that's just not going to connect with them. So, and I mean, that comes down to, I guess, art and creativity. I ain't telling people how to sound, but I think in terms of this UK US hip hop thing, it's not to say it's impossible because I've met spitters in the UK that are dope, like spitters in the US, or could be, you've got local battles that people have battles, and sometimes you got international artists there. It's not a thing to say it's impossible that somebody from the UK
No,
could compete with somebody from the US, but I think you've got to stick to the actual genres, if we want to say that, not, a fly by
don't bring a
night.
basketball.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
bring a basketball to a football game.
that's
All
right.
right, yeah, great.
Yeah, that's right, man. So yeah,
Period. Don't be trying to slam dunk when you really should be freaking doing, doing a hat trick, trying to score, kicking it, kick the football in the goal.
that's right.
So
I mean, interesting. I do kind of like where the game's gone now, where, more doors have been opened up in a sense, and more, dare I say, attention has been put onto the UK in some form because for a lot
yeah,
of years, your purists and your underground guys, yeah, you would know worldwide to whatever, capacity and people in the States, and but a lot of people in the States weren't really aware that there's rappers out here putting it down a certain type of way, or even just to how the street culture is out here or the urban culture or anything like that. So there's
yeah,
more awareness on that now with the internet. That some of these young artists are collaborating with each other internationally and stuff as well. You know what I mean? But I'm yet to hear anything like on a high skill level just yet, especially from a commercial standpoint. On the underground, there's some good stuff, but on the commercial, I'm yet to hear anything like come from that
yeah,
like high skill.
yeah. That represents the UK. Um, someone like someone like a Nas,
That's right.
someone like that, where they're representing hip hop, but at the same time, what they're doing has that commercial appeal. Um, I like the balance um that he has struck. He is actually one of my favorite artists. Um, and yeah, we do have people who are able to do that. We have had some amazing albums, amazing artists that have come from the underground. And if a lot more US artists or US people from the US had heard them, they would, they would change their mind. Like, but
That's right.
for the most part of it, it's all kind of underground. Like people like Craig Mack, um, no, Craig G. People like Craig G. We did a track with him. He knows about the UK. People like Cormega, shout out to Cormega. Um, he knows about the UK. Well, he knows about me. He's watched with gigs and all of that, but he knows about me, and he was very impressed. He told me he played my verse that I did with him 80 times, you
Oh,
know. And yeah, man, that freaking touched me,
yeah.
man. Freaking if I for me, if if I don't do any music again or no one recognizes what I'm doing, just to hear that from Core Mega,
Mega.
who I've
Yeah.
grown up listening to, I'm good. I'm good. And just to hear people like Big Daddy Kane, um, he came up to me when I supported him in Brighton, and he says, "Who was that? Who was you rapping with on stage? Is that your man's? Is that your man's?" I said, "Yeah, that's my brother." I said, "That's my blood brother." He goes, "You got some skill." That was it.
Nah,
That was it. He didn't even need to say anything, but he complimented me on my performance. Granted, that day we shut it down, but to have him say that,
that's right.
so he's heard proper hip hop. Yeah, when we on that day, like hearing us, like that's proper hip hop. That's proper hip hop. And I do have American fans as well, and um they tell me I'm one of their favorite artists. So they do, but for the most part of it, on the top level, the
Of course.
mainstream,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a game. It's a game. It's all a game. It's all a facade. It's all a makeup, uh, flashing lights, smoke and mirrors. It's
That's
all that. It's all about, is that going to translate into money though? And really and truly, um, yeah. Let me segue into this. Um, Back in the day, it was about, freedom of speech, picking up the mic, saying what you needed to say, and whatever. But when the government realized, or the powers that be realized, that these people are, they've got more power than certain politicians now. They got more they got more power than some of the puppets that we have in place to keep certain things the way they are. You know, we could pay these government puppets or these people to read the script from A to Z, and then all of a sudden you got this rapper who goes, you know what? All of that stuff they're talking about is rubbish. Fight the power, and then all of it's undone. So what they realized is, you know what? Yeah, we can't just overlook it like they're just musicians. Really, what they are is they're public figures.
wow.
They're public figures.
And that's been very much skewed because we know, social justice and these advocates for issues that the community are facing has been very staple to hip hop and has been a huge part of hip hop, just people coming from certain conditions and using their voices, whether people wanted to deem the music as hardcore or street or
Yeah,
gangster, you always have people telling stories, but also, expressing levels of intellect as well. I always felt like, you go back and you
yeah,
had somebody like an Ice-T who's a, very hardcore rapper, but you see him on an interview, he would articulate himself well, he would be able to speak about why the issues and, explain why he produces what he produces and stuff like that. So as you said, these guys were like very much public figures in that kind of capacity and very much advocates for change and stuff. What sort of happened, I guess, with just the dawning of the celebrity era and just people becoming more focused on money and just being that figure. Everybody just wants to be recognized. Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be that figure. But actually having some of those qualities has definitely been taken out because once the focus is on what people think is a true representation of the culture. Like even with the hardcore music, you've always had hardcore music, but it wasn't celebrating like some of the destruction as it went on to become, whereas nowadays it's like people can get mad props just from doing some dumb ish and putting it on music and they get mad prop from that. But if you ask them to actually speak about something real, there's very few of them that can actually do that. So in terms of being like a voice for something bigger or that's kind of been quelled, you know what I mean? So instead, as you said, whether it be the powers that be or people at the top or whatever, they would much rather have, for the most part, a lot of ignorant individuals who aren't necessarily cognizant to some of the other things going on around them. They might just be there to push a certain type of narrative irresponsibly, sometimes unconsciously, to the other effects that it can have on people within the society. But and this is that, and that's kind of my thing sometimes when I look at even with this UK US thing, because the guys who are at the forefront trying to lead the charge in the
Yeah,
conversation, I'm looking at them, I'm saying, well, what do you guys actually represent or stand for? It's not really
no.
more than you just trying to get your own vanity or likes out of this thing. It's not like you really championing something or advocating something bigger, or you can speak on something wider. Maybe they can, but I've yet to see that myself.
I haven't really seen, to be honest, like I respect them as grime artists.
Yeah, that's right.
I respect them as grime artists. I love grime. I love grime within its own genre. Like I love grime. I think Skepta is freaking sick. Um, I think
I didn't
Wiley.
listen to them that much, but I respect what they've been able to do with grime music. And some of them, they got a lot of bangers, man. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
in terms of me
they got
sitting around my house listening to, that's never been a thing. I've never really been
yeah.
a listener of it like that. In the clubs and certain one and twos, but otherwise, yeah, hip hop, bashment, reggae, even other genres I listen to are quite eclectic. But grimes, yeah, it's never really been something. I don't think it's the energy on it or something that I've ever really sat around and listened to like that. But
For me, like I'd listen to it like these days. I'd listen to it like when I'm working out or something.
okay,
Or working out, or I listen to it when I'm trying to tidy up the house, maybe, every now and again I just fling it on, but
yeah,
just,
yeah,
when I want to hear some just bars
yeah,
and all of
yeah,
that,
yeah.
just the hype energy. But yeah, I'm more of a hip hop man, neo soul, um, hip hop man, neo soul kind of person. But um, but yeah, for the genre itself, I respect them as artists within their own lane. Do you know what I mean? But when it comes to them saying, right now we want to do this UK US thing,
That's
let's go.
yeah.
I'm like, like let's be honest now. Do you know what I mean? If we're really gonna do this, I'm all about intention. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I'm all about intention. Um, so, there's two language that we're speaking. There's two languages that we're speaking when we speak. There's the language of intention and the language of the tongue. The language of intention, like someone might say to you, yeah, man, Wagwan, what you saying, fam? You cool? And then you say, yeah, man, I'm cool. You blessed? How's the family? Oh, the family's blessed. Oh, okay, that's nice. All right, peace. But really, what the person is probably saying is, you know what? I don't really have the capacity right now to hold space for you. Um, I just want to give you a little head nod and acknowledge that you're there. Haven't really got the time to talk. Um, I'm hoping that, you just say that you're cool and you move on. If you say that they're not cool, it's probably just going to sour the whole thing. So, yeah, you just say that they're cool. I'm going to say mine's is cool. And then we move on from there. But I do hope that you're cool, you know, even though I can't hold space for you. That's the intentional language. That's really what is being said. But
Uh,
on the surface, something else, you know what I'm saying? So when man's like, yeah, this UK US thing, let's go. Is it really a UK US thing?
that's right.
Or is it something else? Because if it really is, I'm sure Skepta, I'm sure Big Zoo and all of that, they've heard UK artists that they know would be about it like that.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
they know.
Like what about people like Triple Darkness, being honest, not even being biased. What about people like Jest? Hmm. People like Jest. What about people like Maestro? What about people like Klashnikov, Scribbler, Kaiser Smirnoff? Um, yeah, what about people like that with actual skill? Um,
That's right.
what about people like Dat Kid or even Flip Tricks, you know?
That's right.
Well, it's
Well,
not
you said the main thing. I think that's where you said it best. It's about just stick to your script, stay in your lane. I think, people could do the comparison thing. You can fantasy book all day long. I always say, music's subjective. What somebody think dope, somebody else might not think dope. What somebody, but when it comes to like skills, we could all acknowledge, levels of skills. And, even therein, some people may still have their preference or what they prefer to listen to. But ultimately, when we're talking like skills or we're talking, defining music and the genres, we know that there is a lot different to what's being actually perpetuated and put out there. And as you said quite aptly, it does
Yeah,
lend the question to what is the wider conversation around this, because it is a
yeah,
UK US thing, so we definitely want to quell that.
yeah,
Definitely not rewrite history. Sorry, I just want to put that last button on it, because I feel as though when guys are doing that and they're not actually even from the hip hop arena as such like that, or even part of
not
that
fair
sort of
that they
cultural
represent it.
dynamic. Yeah, you try to rewrite history because we give props to props due and
Exactly.
stuff like that, and certain things.
Yeah,
Yes, as an artist, you can feel dope enough to compete with anybody. That should speak for itself. That's fine. I can't knock any artist
yeah,
who feels like, they're that tight they can challenge anyone, but don't, be involving other elements that don't need to be involved. Even if you want to say me, Skepta as an artist, I want to go against him, fine, don't put a genre on it, do it. We
yeah.
all need,
Just go ahead, go for his head. Like
that's
even
right.
like instead of someone like Big Zoo, I'd have put I'd have put Ramson Bad Bones, to be honest, on
Mm,
that with the whole double time, with the skills, with the metaphors, I'd have put someone like Ramson Bad Bones on someone like Eminem, if I'm being honest.
no
Someone
doubt.
who's very prolific, very consistent. Um, yeah, someone very prolific and consistent and freaking always keeps his swords sharp. I would put Ramson Bad Bones on that, to be honest. Um, yeah, there's other people I'd be drawing into the mix. People like AKS, I'd draw him into the mix. People who've actually got freaking skills and passion and love for the art. Now, on the kind of big world stage, it would look very different to people. Now it'd be like, raw, who are these guys? But these are the guys that
That
have
could
the skills
actually,
to do the
right.
job. You know what I mean? People like Genesis Elijah.
Mm,
Yeah. People like Genesis Elijah. He's got the skills, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm
who would you
familiar
have? Who would
with
you have? Let me ask you a question. Who
um
would you have represent the UK?
I
Who would
mean,
you have?
I was gonna say,
Oh, you don't want to touch that.
actually, we're being counted down on time now, so we're very limited on time. I would love to pick this one back up on that note, because there
Okay.
was definitely a few heads that I would put in there, and that's something I would, especially if we was to rank it up and match up, say this UK artist, this US artist, and stuff like that. That could be dope and could be fun.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I would definitely include probably some unconventional or unorthodox kind of spitters from the UK that, as you said, probably aren't as widely known as
Yeah.
and that's kind of the thing when it comes to the UK, because you got so much different pockets in different towns, and even within the UK, we've got our own sort of underground and things like that. But on that note, time is fleeting. We've literally got under a minute now before this thing shuts down. So I'm gonna wind down
Yeah.
very quickly. We're gonna pick things back up on the other side. So do you want to drop your social media where guys can check you out?
Yeah, so go to Instagram at official Phoenix the Icefire. Yeah, go check me out there. Um, yeah, man, it's been a pleasure.
Hey, we definitely got to pick this round back up, guys. Appreciate you tapping in back online. We're very short on time on this one, but we are going to join you on the other side.
This is from Max Hernandez,
You know what I'm saying? You're not watching Bout that TV.
and you're watching Bout That Online.
Yo, when you out here, when you in these streets, if you're trying to keep it mental, then you need to be Bout that.
What's going on, people? This is the Carter.
Most money won't kill the MVK market. It's the baddest money race wrestling.
You're watching Bout That TV.
Family, you both finds a neutron, aka Alfonso Fresh. We're picking things back up here. I'm back online. Still joined with Phoenix, the Icefire. We're going over some things, hip hop. Um, I believe before we went out, we were speaking just about some of the I guess UK sort of contemporaries that have done their thing or that,
Mm.
I would put up and that I could see like holding their own. Like for myself personally, in terms of like me coming up, I always heard a lot of music, obviously from Jamaica, a lot of music from America. Those were like my two biggest influences, and obviously family on both sides and stuff as well. So
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I wasn't necessarily that familiar with a lot of UK rappers per se, you know what I mean? Unless it was guys that I came across like when I was out there, doing my thing, even like Genesis, I used to come across him at like I see him performing at like Godiva Festival, Coventry, and things like that. Like
Hmm.
GLC, used to bump into GLC, when he was out, doing his thing, selling his CDs, PDC, guys like that. But, that was a certain time and era as well. But prior to that, I'd only really heard like the American stuff. So in terms of like my production and, how I kind of got the game, it was definitely more so from American artists. And to me, they was always then the barometer for what I saw as the highest level of execution of that art form, you know what I mean? So I say that to say even though I could enjoy, even from America, a various range of artists from whether they were top lyricists. Because when I first started listening, it was like lyricists, primarily East Coast artists, so it was heavy, lyrical capacity when it just comes to how they was putting music together and stuff. But not to take nothing away from artists in the South who were probably coming and they weren't as articulate on some points. Yeah, there was some that were, but initially even just guys like, Limits and some of those guys I was listening to, they were doing their thing. But I say that to say I could listen to a range of things, but my barometer is really like the top, MCs like elite MCs like a Nas or a Rakim or a G Rap and Kumo, just different people from a certain kind of era. So when I would hear something, not just necessarily from the UK, be it UK or even international, because there's always been international hip hop where you may not even understand what they're saying because it's in a different language, like French, Polish, whatever, but you know the sound of what they're producing and you know that hip hop sound, you know what I mean? And you can hear lyricism and you can hear, what they're doing with their wordplay and stuff. So that was always my kind of benchmark. So I say that to say when I came across, certain UK artists, few really stood out to me because what I use for a barometer is different, you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
in
yeah,
terms of those that I know and that I saw like really having an impact, doing their thing, in some cases, producing stuff with people from the States at a high level and the same level, I'd have to mention guys like Swiss from Soul Solid, you know what I mean?
shout out to
Definitely.
Swiss.
Huh?
I said shout out to Swiss.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. And
Amazing stuff.
Ashley D, man, Ashley Waters as well, my boy. I remember even he told me himself, like, even with So Solid, a lot of those guys were rappers and stuff as well. They were doing the garage thing, but rap was
Mm.
what they're, you had the different set and that, and so when I said kind of, I'll bring it back with a few guys. I remember Brands and Black, part of Euro Gang.
Oh yeah,
You
Brandon Black.
know, they did their thing, man. They
Mm-hmm.
would stand up, you know what I mean? Obviously
Hmm.
SAS, Mega Mayhem, you know what I mean? Go old school a bit, Freddy Krueger, who I don't think sometimes people give him enough props because Freddy, he doing a lot of stuff in the movie with the movies and stuff now. He just actually recently put out a movie with Peter Andre that there was a lot of backlash about, but when I looked into it, I seen it was one of Freddie's productions. I said, the Freddie behind it, I know it's so good, man. They got Sizzler and a few people in there. I believe they shot it in Jamaica. But Freddie used to do his thing, coming out of London, his rap figure stuff as well, going back, you know what I mean? And at that time, it wasn't probably as, lucrative as the game's probably become now. But in terms of
Yeah,
pioneering, somebody could definitely hold his own and still you probably notice with a lot of the guys I probably pick are kind of street as well because the street's always been a huge part of hip hop to me as well. Not that I don't appreciate some of maybe the backpackers or some that maybe it's just under having fun and all that, but I always like a good mix of the street. So obviously within the street side of Birmingham, I put myself, B6 slash certain members, Shabba, PDC, they had their guys, you know what I mean? And one of my guys, Rowdy T from London, man, he used to do his thing as well, man. I think he in Orlando or Miami or somewhere now, but so I and I know there's a whole bunch of other artists, even just whether it be underground or even spitters that I've come across that, what I would hear and just know, boom, that's a solid spitter. Yourself, you had that Genesis, you mentioned Akala, there's other names and stuff as well. But those are the guys that I would say, yeah, they could bump alongside the US stuff as well, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel you. Like for me, there's yeah. So like I remember back in the day, Mike Assassin. He was one of my favorite artists when I first started. Mike Assassin from Elite Team. Shout out to Big Mike, Richard Price. Um, he was out there battling like street US artists
Hmm.
from years back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Years back. He was out there freestyling off the head, battling them. And he said this one line that I never forgot it. I never forgot it. This was 2000 freaking 7 or something like that, or even 2006. He said to one guy, "You wish you was my nuts so you could hang with me."
Hmm.
So you wish you was my nuts so you could hang with me. And he was freestyling, just freaking.
Yeah,
Um,
slick
if
like
I
like
was,
on them cane lines, man.
yeah. So I'm like, this is where I'm at with it. So you got artists that are really good at making good music, good musical projects, and then you've got artists who's got like lyrical skill, like sword swingers.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say in terms of like UK, some good stuff I've really heard. People who can make really good music. Um, Funny enough, this may even be controversial and it may even, highlight something for you. But Bashi's got he's got some really nice music.
Okay.
Should hear his album. Yeah, you should
Yeah,
hear
no,
his album.
I've never really heard much from. I mean, I know who he is, and I've heard obviously one and twos, but I've never like
You know,
yeah.
brother, brother, you need he's got one track called when black men lose their smile.
Okay.
Yeah. But like his whole project is creative, lyrical skill, everything. And that might surprise you. It might surprise you to even hear that.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Not
when you listen to
with him, but
what he's
I
doing
probably ain't come
creatively,
across it, but yeah, yeah. Because he's the one that had the Black Boys track and the one before in it.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. But his level of artistry
Okay.
step up.
Respect it. Yeah,
And
yeah,
I,
yeah.
brother, and I don't just say this because I'm an artist myself. Do you know what
Of
I'm
course.
saying? Like me, like I put myself up there.
Of
Just
course.
being honest, I
Yeah,
put
yeah, yeah.
myself up there. If I was to pick a whole bunch of MCs to represent the UK, for the old school legends, I'd bring up people like Blade, people like Fire Life Cypher, um, Maestro. He's still doing it, but I would put him as like old school. Maybe I'll put him as old school, like Maestro, to represent. Um, Jest, I would say Jest. Um, I would say Triple Darkness. Mainly Cyrus Malachi, Melanin 9, Tesla's Ghost, Blasphemy, um, Crown Nectar, Sharon. I'd say myself. Shout out to the whole crew though, like my whole crew, I would say. But um, and people like Genesis Elijah, people like Ramson Bad Bones, um, people like that kid. Um, I'd fling in a bit of Flip Tricks in there. Shout out to Flip Tricks. Um, I know there's some others. There is some others. Mike Assassin. Um, hmm. I'll have to get back to you on some more names, but off the top, that's who I'm thinking. I'm thinking those people. If you was to put them up um to represent UK, yeah, would hold it down. Would hold it down.
That there's some names out there I'm familiar with. Obviously, there's some that I'm not familiar with. I'll be checking some stuff out.
Like who?
A
Who did
name
you
came
think
to me
of?
even when you was rolling. I forgot my boy Bait Nate from London, man. So, shout out to Bait Nate. But, the interesting thing is because, obviously not to negate, anybody's work that they've put in. We're at a different time
No, 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 no,
with
no. Shout
the
out to everyone.
yeah, we're at a different time now with the internet and with social media. And I say that to say because, even for myself and certain people coming up, we came up at a time where,
Capo, 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 Genghis Khan, Capo.
okay.
Yeah, Capo. Sorry,
Yeah, no,
I cannot forget his
we
name.
came up at a time where you had to probably come across some of these people to actually hear their music, and depending on where you're at in locality, I know obviously in London and certain areas it was different compared to certain
Mm.
areas like Birmingham, where some of us even within the just the scene per se we probably didn't become versed to some other artists until afterwards, later on, even though they may have been doing their thing for a while prior, what I mean? We didn't really hear about till years later, like even you guys like your Roots maneuvers and stuff like that,
Yeah,
what I mean?
Roots Maneuver.
And people that are doing their thing and we didn't hear about them till after. And some of that came with the advent of Channel U coming into the forefront and that showing a lot of obviously not just garage, you had the UK rap, which was quite coming through at the seams then with a lot of London artists was on there. I can't say I was a big watcher because to be honest, I spent a lot of time here in the States, Jamaica, obviously, but the States, New Orleans, certain places have always been more my remit and working with, No Limit and certain camps out there. So in terms of the UK, yeah, I've always kind of known some of the stuff, obviously from my own section, like if you're talking Birmingham, and I could give you a bit of a rundown from the stuff down there. But outside of Birmingham, yeah, at one point we wasn't really hearing much. Apart from Tim Westwood used to play some stuff on his show. He used to have like the last hour, he used to play some UK stuff, and that actually got me familiar
Yeah.
to more like UK rappers that was around the country. When I'm listening, I'm hearing okay, because at that point, I was heading up Tim's street team for Birmingham in the Midlands, but it was
Oh, is it? Oh, wow.
yeah, that's actually how I met Morris Data, even though we're from the same city somewhat. It's like because they used to come to the Westwood parties and they used to always play some of their music, like Silent Screams, I believe was a big song at one point. He used to play them songs on the radio, man. So I used to give Westwood his prop for that because he used to play some of the UK stuff. Even though then a lot of the grime artists kind of got into a stitch with him because they were saying to him, "You're not playing enough UK music," even though he used to play UK
Yeah.
because he just wasn't playing grime. And then they kind of got in, he basically started to play grime and it's like Semtex I mentioned earlier because Semtex was a heavy proponent for grime. Even though he was the A&R of Def Jam UK, he wasn't really pushing like UK rappers. He wasn't going to sign a Browns and Black or he wasn't going to sign a, he wanted to sign like grime artists. He even put out a whole Crunk and Grime mixtape or something where it was like mixing Dizzy Rascal stuff with Lil Jon and all that stuff because he felt that
Uh,
Grime was the UK's version of Crunk, but it's like, dude, let it rest. So sometimes he actually been quite excited about this thing that popped off again recently. And I was giving him what for on his social media, but he couldn't really respond. But yeah, he's Tom said you did. No, the ledge already, so just. But anyway, yeah, I say that to say, some of the names you mentioned I'll be familiar with. Some I haven't been that familiar with or privy to their music, but I do completely understand that there's a plethora of
yeah.
talent in the UK, and people that are true to hip hop and the art form, whether that's rappers, b-boys, any kind of aspect of the culture, man.
Yeah, one sec.
Yeah, so with that being said, how do you see just the current state of the UK climate and music? Do you think it's sort of for the better now that there's more, I guess, notoriety and popularity towards some UK artists? You've got even though I haven't heard some of these people's music, you got guys like Central C and some of these people who are, getting wide celebration for being UK hip hop artists, and more people are becoming established. You got a lot of youngsters making music, and some people making some good money as well also. So how do you find the current climate of the UK music scene, especially as a rapper as well?
I think it's being more gentrified, to be honest. So it looks shinier than it was before, but the soul is missing. But in terms of the overall kind of concept that there is focus on the UK, that is positive. But it's like, see, the thing is, the industry is like a gated community. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're looking after their friends. The people at the top are looking after their friends or people who will fit in with what they're doing. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
It's not about the art anymore the way it used to be. So
Of
it
course.
looks a bit more shinier. It looks shinier. There's a lot more attention on, the UK and the music that we do as a whole. However, the soul is more is missing. Now we have people who are really trying to be glorified human billboards, you
Mm.
know.
That's right. I think it's interesting even when you mention, I guess, the gentrification aspect. We have saw a lot of recent debates, even within the US, in terms of the creation of hip hop. Um, some feel it was solely created by FBAs. Some feel it was created by FBAs with participation of other blacks, Jamaicans, other people from the diaspora. Some feel as though there was a stronger connection or participation element from Hispanics and stuff like that as well. So there's so much different, I guess, nuances in that argument itself. And then when we look at hip hop to where it has become now, with some feelers, ultimately gone through that kind of gentrification process in a different aspect. But ultimately, some people feel as though hip hop always sort of represented, especially from its initial creation, whether you go back and you listen to old stuff or you look at old videos, you got to see it was primarily, 99.9% black, and something that came from when you're talking like even just the soul aspect of music, something that came from the psyche and the soul and the consciousness of black people in America, be it FBAs or others. So initially it was only sort of people from that group that was producing the music, and yes, others over time were able to participate, but there were certain elements of it, especially when we talk about the social aspect of what people are drawing awareness to. Not to say could only be understood by black people, but for the most parts it was something that was their kind of cipher, just like we talk about, Wu-Tang and certain guys, a lot of those guys, 5% of the Swedish, we're talking ciphers, there was a cipher going on within the music and a certain understanding that was for, certain groups. Yes, it transcended and went wider than that, and other people have participated, but it always kept that sort of black, presence. I think that sort of shifted somewhat. I was listening to a brother the other day from London, Sabra Gavi, I believe, and he was saying, people have sort of embraced street culture as sort of black culture in a sense, but because it sort of changed to that people have accepted a certain degraded aspects of street culture for themselves as their cultural identity within,
Yeah,
because that bar is then so low, you got to understand other people from other groups do the same thing, especially in terms of like criminality and things like that. It
Yeah,
became such a low level bar thing that, now it's easier to be sort of gentrified in that aspect by other people to come in, because anyone could come in and, say the foulest stuff, or say they did this, or say they did that, or, so on and so forth. And that was kind of one of my peeves with some of the early grime music as well, because not to say I didn't appreciate other people from other groups being able to participate, but it had that kind of low, I don't want to say value, because like you said, there may have been other MCs I may not be that familiar with them that, was a bit more, 'cause people always used to say, oh, no, you should hear Kano, you should hear this one, that got a bit more, you know what I mean?
yeah,
But I say that to say just the level it was on of just not just street, because we come from street in hip hop, but street that has a message. But this was just on the level of just, aggression, street, da 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 da. Some of that's translated into now how we got like the drill and the UK rap or whatever. And some of those elements have even crossed over, you know what I mean? Because I hear some stuff from the US that sounds, they got the accents are different, but it sounds similar to grime, because they've been
yeah,
listening to some of that, you know what I mean? But I say that to say you've got like a lower frequency, I guess, of the music that's being produced. So everyone
yes,
who's on a low kind of frequency can kind of run with that now. So it's you're seeing all these other groups, and not just, world all over the world. Yeah, some people do like the good hip hop and the good stuff as well, but ultimately, everybody's influenced by what black people do. And if black people said, okay, well, this is what we're deeming as cool, and it's, this the street stuff and the, this and that, everybody else is gonna jump on that too, you know what I mean? Whereas it's missing the points of uplifting, which it had before. Even though it had the street stuff, it was about uplifting, you know what I mean? So now things ain't really about uplifting. If it's about uplifting, it's about the individual uplifting themselves. Like
mm,
they've made this much money, or they've made this much name for themselves and stuff. And sometimes
yeah,
it's off the back of a lot of BS, and not even good skill or good meat, especially for some of these cats who they just sound like you could find another MC who sounds just the same as them, but they just happen
yeah.
to be more popular, you know what I mean? And especially in the UK, you get a lot of props out here. Just I'm gonna wind up on this button, but you get a lot of props out here that make you musically just because you went to prison. So somebody could go to prison and people appreciate them as an artist now, especially on the street level, that blows them up, just by going to prison, as opposed to, you ain't really like that in the States, you know what I mean? People go to prison,
Nah,
whatever, they judge you off your skill and that. But here you can get it's more of a popularity thing and a notoriety thing. And if you're on a certain kind of line or time and you go prison, yeah, that blow you up real quick, bro.
it's like also what I mean by gentrification, I just mean that hip hop was the voice of the voiceless. It's the voice of the voiceless, is the man standing on a soapbox and speaking his truth and just shouting out all of the things that he's going through. It's like, listen, I'm fucking suffering. Turning the poison and the hate and the anger into alchemy and making music out of it. Something that speaks to everyone where they're at, because no one's speaking for them. As opposed to some rich kid, maybe Shia LaBeouf, someone like that, coming out with an album, don't really have anything to really say that speaks to, in the same way, but because he's got more money, because he's maybe more connected, maybe his dad and mom, they know the person who owns Sony, they got some money, put him out there. Now that stuff is more pushed in the forefront now. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
You know,
definitely. I've been
anything that,
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
yeah, anything that's gonna help them sell the next product, anything that's gonna cause some kind of controversy, anyone who's gonna talk about sex, money, or drugs and say, "I'm here, you're down there." Um,
But I feel that comes with just, I'll go back to the skill and the barometer is kind of for most people being so low. So because it's like that, it does make it easy for, as you said, we often hear a lot of people. levy the charge against different folks for being what they would deem as industry plants. Is it a thing? Sure, it could be, but because I believe, especially for this type of music, as I said, the barometer now is quite low for most people. So it's that easy
Hmm.
that you can really plant somebody in because of what people I guess either want or accept from what's being given to them.
Yeah, true, true.
No
Just
doubt.
it's just in closing for me, what I would like to see is I would like there to be a proper platform and a proper time where UK hip hop in its purest form, it has its day, it has its genre, you know, it's protected and it's kind of clearly defined. That's what I would like.
Of course.
And I would like those with skill, no matter if you've heard them before or whatever, if they've got the skill, they've put in the work, it will be nice for just, for the record, yeah,
Well,
for it to be like, right, if you're gonna check rock and roll, you need these are the people doing it. These are the people that have done it. Like, regardless if they are independent or they're a part of a big record label or whatever, these are the people. Yeah.
that's
Like,
right.
let the people,
It's
yeah.
important,
And
man, because they
same
got to
with
know
hip hop.
it's history.
Yeah, it's history. It's history. And to be honest, the people are being deprived of, this amazing entertainment, this
Well,
amazing piece of
every
art.
year they do stuff for, for hip hop, the hip hop anniversaries. And in some cities, sometimes they do more like Leeds, they do a lot of stuff in their museum. And some places they focus in on their local scenes because there's a lot of history here just within UK hip hop. And that goes back, like I said, not even just on the rap aspect, that goes, going back to even some predating us and some they was out there breaking under breaking time, some was out there, getting involved with other elements of the culture and stuff, and it's still, truly a part of the UK hip hop history and stuff as well. Some guys filming, documenting stuff. There's, a lot of people that put in work, promoters, all sorts of
Yeah.
things. So we definitely want to give it up in that, man. And before we wind down on this one, is there anything upcoming that you want to let the people know about yourself personally, like projects that you want people to know they could look out for?
Oh, nice. That's quite poignant. I've got an album with Rams and Bad Bones that's gonna be dropping in October. Um, Music video going to be announced and dropped on my birthday, September 1st. Um, Shout out to Rams and Bad Bones. Shout out to Receptor Records for putting it out. Shout out to Huchinu, who is going to be organizing the launch party and everything to do with that. Shout out to Defacer, UKHH for shooting the music videos. Shout out to Aisha Peters for featuring on the album. Big shout outs to Tommy Evans and Pavam from Foreign Beggars. Shout out to Kulya Beats. Yeah, he's the one who produced a brother from Ukraine, who produced the whole album. Absolutely phenomenal, start to finish. Real reminiscent of that old school boom bap that we all know and love, but it's got kind of like an updated feel to it. Can't explain it, but yeah, you'll know when you hear it. Um, Shout out to Sovereign Comics, Dr. Cyclops, for doing the artwork on for Poison to Medicine. Yeah, the album's called Poison to Medicine. For me, it's kind of like a follow-up from Panacea. For those who haven't got Panacea, Panacea means cure for all ills. I dropped that in 2020. Came up, started writing it and recording it in 2019. Dropped it in 2020 before the pandemic hit.
Lockdown, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, before a lot, yeah, and it means cure for all ills. So this one is kind of like a follow-up, Poison to Medicine. you know, conceptually speaking. So yeah, that's what's coming up.
Dope. We'll be looking out for that. And shout out to Mixer Reviews, who holds down our review section about that online. He will definitely be checking it out as well for sure and putting together a review for it. We're definitely gonna have to connect on another show at some point. You know, not even just to talk music. There's other areas and stuff as well. I know you mentioned just the comics and stuff like that. You know, a lot of good movies that have just come out recently. You got the new Superman movie. You know, you guys
Oh yeah,
check that out, and the
like that. Yeah,
Fantastic Four movie is also out for the comic book busters. Pretty decent. You know, I've been able to check them out recently, so we encourage you guys to support the film industry as well. Also, you know, it's been a busy past few weeks, culminating with this weekend going. We just observed SummerSlam 2025. Not very impressive to myself personally. I think they've got a bit too Hollywood now with some of the stuff, and you know, I don't know if it's my old ages, but the whole matches and all that ain't hitting like it used to,
yeah,
like them old SummerSlams and stuff like that. You know, so, you know, that put an end to quite a few hectic few weeks. So we're looking at starting fresh now. We're in a new month. You know, we definitely want to say condolences to the people that we lost last month. Quite a few
yeah.
big legends from Malcolm, Jamal Warner, Hulk Hogan, and Ozzy
Mm,
Osbourne from Birmingham. You know, it was actually good to see Ozzy's funeral procession come through the city of Birmingham with people showing out and supporting. So appreciate guys checking out on the line here on Spreaker, whether you're listening or watching us on YouTube. If you are, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be updated on new drops and content. Do send us over any emails and keep them coming for Spreaker if you want us to react to anything that I try and get back into a flow of things with releases on this channel. Obviously, you guys can check out that online channel as well. Also, check out the DOA TBM for socio-political content. Anything else you want to press my brother Phoenix the Icefire before we roll out on this one?
Want to shout out Lewis Parker. We got a tune that we done together, and just want to big him up for all of the hard work that he's put in. And just want to send all of my fans some love and say, boom, your boy Phoenix the Ice Fight is not done. There is something coming out this October. And for all those who are in London or out of London, looking forward to seeing you at the launch party.
No doubt, man. And we definitely want to say big ups. We appreciate you taking the time. You know, thank you for, you know, dropping in, blessing us with some combo. We're definitely going to pick some stuff back up as well. Also, big ups to yourself for obviously all the work that you've put in continually and still doing within the scene. And, you know, because ultimately, you know, even where everything's at now, it comes on the foundation of what was laid before. And as you said, sometimes some people may have been credited, some not, some, you know, not necessarily do it for the credit, but they still played a major role in helping shape things to what we have now. So definitely big yourselves up. We're gonna wind out on this one. Your boy Fonzie Neutron, aka Alfonso Fries Great. Peace.